So our story starts somewhere with a girl crying her heart out. On the other side, we see our hero Maz asking Lin about his wife. Lin replies, "Her Highness the Princess will come in right away, my lord." Maz thinks to himself, "What's made me stay silent all this time during this long 2-year war? She's my wife, Arena." He's super happy thinking, finally I can see her again. But the moment Caesar sees this girl, he's shocked and asks, "Where's my wife?" The girl tries to get close to Caesar and says, "What are you talking about, my lord? I'm your wife." But Caesar pulls out his sword and angrily says to her, "This is the last time I'll ask you where, Arena." We know that Arena was lame and her leg was injured. As for Caesar, because of the curse of the shining dragon, he was turned into a monster one day. But despite all that, Arena was very happy with him. On the day Caesar went to war, Arena was really sad and begged him not to go because if he did, he would die. But he promised her he'd come back no matter what. Now back to the present with Arena saying, "Caesar was the only one holding on to me, like I was his only safe angel in the world. But he left me, abandoned me the moment I lifted the curse from him. For 2 whole years, I wrote him letters but never got a single reply." There were also rumors about a romantic relationship between my half-sister and Caesar in the isolated palace. Suddenly, Arena's memories are interrupted when she is attacked by thieves. Arena tries with all her strength to escape, but they're about to catch her. Then, out of nowhere, someone appears and kills them all. That person approaches Arena and she gets really scared. She pulls out a dagger, trembling, and tells him, "Don't come any closer." But she's shocked when she sees his face. It's Caesar. We learn that Arena is an illegitimate child of the noble Flores family. She lived with her mother until she was 7, but after her mother died during the plague, her father took her to his house, but unfortunately, Rena's status there was lower than the servants, maybe even lower than the dogs. Then one day, her father's wife told her, "You've been chosen to be the wife of the first prince, Caesar." Rena thought to herself, "Now I get why they brought me here, to be the wife of that cursed prince instead of my half-sister." We know Caesar is also illegitimate like Rena and is nicknamed the Beast Prince. He married 4 girls, but they all died on their wedding night because of Caesar's curse. Rena cried and thought, getting married to a guy like that, maybe even lower than the dogs. Then one day her father's wife told her, "You've been chosen to be the wife of the first prince, Caesar." Rena thought to herself, "Now I get why they brought me here, to be the wife of that cursed prince instead of my half-sister." We know Caesar is also illegitimate like Rena and is nicknamed the Beast Prince. He married 4 girls, but they all died on their wedding night because of Caesar's curse. Rena cried and thought, getting married to a guy like that like telling her go and die, but if that's my fate then so be it. She says, "Show us to her father's wife." "Okay, I'll marry the prince." On the wedding night, we see Arena wearing her wedding dress, saying, "I know the prince rarely shows himself in public, but I never imagined I'd be marrying his agent too." They didn't even do the basic security checks. We notice a dagger hidden under Arena's dress. Arena's inner thoughts are cut off as knights enter, bringing Caesar locked inside a cage. One knight tells Arena, "We gave Prince Caesar a sedative, so he's unconscious." Then the knight lays Prince Caesar on the bed and leaves. Arena was super shocked, wondering how they could treat Amir like a beast. We see that Caesar's hand looks like a dragon's claw. After a few minutes, Caesar wakes up and starts smashing the room. At the same time, Rena is hiding because she's really scared of Caesar, but he easily finds her hiding spot. Look, Caesar's glaring at her. No wonder she's terrified, not just scared. We also learn that Safra, Rena's half-sister, was the one who gave Rena that dagger to kill herself before the monster Caesar could kill her. Rena thinks to herself, "There's one thing Safra doesn't know about me. I've never given up on life. I've always fought to survive, so I whoa. This dagger's pointed right at me, but in the end, only the strongest survive." Arena threatens Caesar with the dagger, telling him, "Don't come any closer." But Caesar surprises her and says, confused, "Go away." Arena gets angry and snaps, "Yeah, go away." But he moves closer to the dagger anyway. She asks, "What are you doing? Are you really gonna stab me?" Suddenly, Caesar starts acting strangely. Arena realizes he's scared of the thunder, but she's really confused. She thinks to herself, "This is so weird. People say he's a monster, but he's shaking just from hearing thunder. If I'm not wrong, he's not a monster. She puts her hand on his face to comfort him and says, "No worries, that sound won't hurt us." He asks her, "Are you okay?" She says, "Yeah, everything's fine. Nothing's gonna happen." But then he starts acting weird again and Irina gets scared. She tries to grab the knife again but ends up cutting her hand on it. As soon as Caesar smells the blood, his eyes get even redder than before. He moves closer to Irina's hand, licks the wound, then bites her hand and drinks her blood. Right after drinking her blood, Caesar goes back to normal. Irina notices that Caesar has calmed down and is obedient now that he's had her blood. She thinks to herself, he's not really a monster, just a big one. After that, Caesar falls asleep resting on Irina's leg. Irina thought to herself, he acted weird, but he didn't seem like he wanted to hurt me. Maybe he's in a situation like mine. The important thing is I survived. The next morning, the knight went to Irina to take her body, expecting she'd be dead like the other brides. But as soon as he entered the room, he was shocked to see Caesar sleeping on Irina's lap. Caesar woke up ready to attack the knights, but Irina stopped him, saying, "Don't do that." Caesar calmed down and told her, "Don't do that." She replied, "Yes, because this isn't good. You should stay still, right?" He agreed, and the knight couldn't believe what he was seeing. He turned to the other knight and said, "Inform His Majesty. Empress is there in the moment and we go to help her." She tells her that the first prince and the bride spent their first night together safely and the bride didn't die. The Empress laughs mockingly. We learn that Empress Cornelia was the emperor's mistress back when he was crowned prince. Then she became empress after her father-in-law, the first prince's father and Caesar, passed away. Cornelia had a son, Prince Matthias, with the emperor while she was still his mistress, but it took over 20 years for Matthias to be officially recognized as royalty. Then the empress orders the assistant. She gives them the green light and says, "Maybe this time this thing will take my place. Tell that thing to come and have tea with me." Soon that thing gets used to Irina. Because of the blood that came from Irina's wound, everyone thought the marriage between Irina and Caesar had happened. So Irina thinks to herself, now no one can deny the validity of this marriage. At least I feel at ease now. Then the Empress's assistant takes Irina to the Green Palace. We see that the palace is really old and full of spiders. The assistant says to Irina, teasing, "Don't you like this place?" Irina smiles and replies, "No, I don't. Please tell Her Majesty the Empress that I'm grateful for her care." The maid replies, "All right," and then Irina heads to the bedroom thinking to herself, even though it's the imperial palace, there's nothing special here. But honestly, it's comfortable compared to how I worked at the florist's house, so it's not too bad. The maid says to Irina, "I'll help you with your bath." Irina replies, "No, I'll bathe myself." From now on, there's no need for help with bathing. The maid responds, "Understood, princess." At lunchtime, Irina waits for Caesar to join her, but he's running late. She asks the maid about him, and the maid reassures her, saying Caesar is supposed to arrive soon. He enters, and Irina is super excited to see him, but she's shocked when she finds him like this. She gets upset with the knight and asks him how anyone could treat a person like that. The knight ignores her words and tells another knight to grab Caesar before he escapes. But Caesar manages to break free from the chains, though the knights hit him and take control of him again. Irina tries to stop the knights, but they grab her instead. Seeing the bruises on Caesar's neck, Irina is shocked and thinks to herself, how could they do this? The knight then tells Irina not to touch his mouth or the 3 chains. If you can count your fingers, then take this. Before the rider leaves, Caesar the rider sits down on the chair and puts the muzzle on his mouth. You notice Irina sees Caesar's new bruises and wonders about the story behind this mask. She thinks to herself, Caesar's food is just raw meat slices and tongs. Do these people really think Caesar is less than an animal? Irina feels really upset for Caesar because her father's wife and the guards treated him like part of Caesar's family. Caesar is in a lot of pain because of this muzzle, so Irina reassures him and says she'll set him free now. She takes the muzzle off Caesar's face. Despite the warning she was given, after the knight left, Irina took off Caesar's mask. Her mom smiled and said, "I see everything's fine," but Caesar started acting weird again. He got so angry that he broke the chains he was tied up with. Arena got really scared, but she remembered when the knight told her not to touch the mask or the chains for the prince's safety. He said if anything happens, she should throw this bottle at Prince Mir's face. When Caesar saw the bottle with Arena, he got even angrier and pushed her, which hurt her hands. I want you to understand something. When Caesar acts strange and attacks Arena, he's not in his right mind or acting normally. But despite that, Caesar Larina decides not to throw the bottle at him because she doesn't want to be like the knights, but as soon as she sees her wound bleeding, she tries to calm Caesar down using her blood like last time. She asks Caesar, "Here you go, do you want this?" Caesar starts drinking Arena's blood, and Arena thinks to herself, will he really calm down through the blood? Thank God no one is here. The prince is rumored to be cursed, and now he wants blood too. If anyone finds out about this, who knows what they'll say? Arena tells Caesar to stop now, but he moves closer and is about to drink from her neck. She gets really scared, cries, and begs him to stop. Caesar says to her, "Stop," and she says to him, "Arena, yes, if you keep teasing me like this, I might die." Caesar is shocked and says, "I don't want that." She replies, "I want you, Arena. I also don't want to kill you." He wipes her tears and says, "I really don't want that." We're surprised, and she thinks to herself, does he really understand what death means? At least he doesn't want me to die. She says to him, "Caesar, my name is Arena, but you can call me Bren." He laughs and calls her Bren. She says, "Arena, we're married now." And she thinks, no one thought I would survive this marriage, this ruined green palace made of quartz where we'll live, and the empress who doesn't approve of either Caesar or me anymore. Caesar's current situation, no matter how far it goes, doesn't matter. He's the only one I can count on right now. I'm on Caesar's side, so I tell Renee I'm with Caesar. She says, "You're on his side." I say, "Yeah, we're on the same side." Then she tells him, "If someone hits you again like before, let me know." She holds up her finger and says, "Promise." He looks confused, not really getting it, so she grabs his hand and teaches him. "It means we're making a promise now." He smiles and says, "Okay." She thinks to herself, did he really get what that means? Then they sit down at the table to eat. Caesar eats with his hands, so Aaron teaches him table manners, saying, "Caesar, you have to eat with a fork." He opens 00, 16, 59, 00, 1858. She opens her mouth to eat it, and he tells her, "Don't do it yourself," but she gives in because he's so gentle and he feeds her. When Caesar smiles, she thinks to herself, this is more like a 5-year-old kid than a husband. Their moment is suddenly broken by a woman walking in. As soon as Caesar sees her, he says, "Miss High." We're surprised and ask, "Who are you?" She replies, "Miss High. Sorry for showing up so suddenly. I'm Miss High, assigned to serve Prince Caesar. I've been his nurse for many years. When I heard that 2 of you moved to the Green Palace, I came here without wasting a moment. But lately, His Highness has become extremely sensitive. I think the knights have almost stopped using the medicine." She says to her, "Rena, if you knew about this, how did you let things get this far?" Michai replies, "I apologize because honestly, I didn't have the strength to stop Her Majesty the Empress." Irini believes Michai's sincerity, but then says, "Michai, but how did you do it? His Highness hasn't listened to anyone lately. He even refused my care. How did you manage to calm him down?" Rena gets nervous and thinks to herself, "I can't tell her I calmed him with my blood. Who would believe that? If word gets out that I used some kind of dark magic, people will accuse me of witchcraft. I have to keep this a secret no matter what." Miss High asks her if she's okay, and she says, "Arena, I'm fine." Caesar is on Arena's side and tells her to call, so they all calm down knowing she's all right. She thinks to herself, "Did he notice my worries?" Miss High is super happy and says, "His Majesty must really like you." Arena laughs and replies, "Yeah, that really comforts me." Miss High tells her she's going to the tea party with the Empress tomorrow evening. In Arena's room, she's awake thinking about the tea party and wonders, what's going to happen at the party tomorrow? Suddenly, Caesar grabs her feet and starts playing with her toes, laughing. Arena says to him, "Caesar, you surprised me. You shouldn't have done that, going to your room. How did you do that? I can't kick you out, of course not. It's cold over there, come here." He's so happy and says to her, "Really, I'm genuinely happy." You look at him and think to yourself, since we're married, it's okay to share the same bed. It's been a long time since I felt someone's warmth while sleeping. So you tell Riene, Caesar, come here. We can sleep peacefully if we hold each other like this. After that, Riene falls asleep because she's very tired. On the other side, we see Macias asking his servant about Caesar. Did he survive? The servant replies, yes, he survived. Macias looks annoyed and says, he looks so irritating, he's going to give us a hard time. We know that the governors supported the prince's first heir, Caesar, even though he wasn't very mentally stable because they wanted a puppet emperor. So Matthias asks the servant, which noble family is the lucky bride from this time? The servant replies, from the house of Florus. Matthias says, ah, of course. Isn't that the house of the hero who hunted the light dragon? Could it really be true that the blood of the great sage defeated the dragon? They actually gave their daughter to that fool. The servant understands that Irina is his illegitimate daughter. Matthias becomes really curious to see who the woman that survived Caesar is, so we head to Irina. She woke up startled because she had a weird dream. In the dream, the maids were accusing one of them of touching the empress's jewel. Rina glanced over at Caesar, who was sleeping next to her, and thought to herself, he really does look like a handsome, noble young man. Then she heard a fight outside her room, so she went out to see what was going on. She asked, what's all this noise? One of the maids said, this girl touched your majesty's jewel. You need to kick her out immediately. Rina asked the accused maid to explain herself, and we find out that the maids are doing this just to get her fired because she's from the streets. Then Darina said, I'm the head maid. This morning, while cleaning, Sarah saw Delphina touching your majesty's jewel. We all came here to report it. Riene thought to herself, I know that look in their eyes well. It's the same look the servant gave me when I first entered Flora's house. That's why she could see through their little lie. Riene said to Alda, but Alda, isn't this your job? How rude of you, unbelievably rude. You failed to manage your master's jewel properly, didn't train your servants right, and on top of that, you caused trouble right outside my door before I even woke up. The servants were shocked by Riene's reaction because they expected her to kick Delphina out right away, but she said, no way, not in this place. Then the other lady snapped back, that was on the countess's orders. So Irina replied, show me your nerve trying to ruin the good name of the kind countess. She said, I have to tell the countess myself about this rudeness. All the maids got scared. Irina thought to herself, I have no choice but to scare them even more. The maids begged her to forgive them. Irina remembered when the maids told her on her wedding day that a bride who marries on a rainy day will shed many tears, so she decided to get back at them. When Irina saw Delphina, she said, just had a nightmare about you last night. Am I imagining things? Aaron calls the guard, and when he goes to her, she signals to the maid, Sarah, and asks, what's in your pocket? Sarah gets scared and nervously says, nothing at all. Aaron tells the guard to check her pocket. The guard pulls out Irina's necklace from Sarah's pocket. Aaron says to everyone, Irina, you all said Delphina was the one who touched the jewelry, so why was this found in Sarah's pocket? Theft is a serious crime and must be dealt with strictly. Irina asks the guard to take them all in for questioning. Delphina thanks Irina, and Irina thinks to herself, if I hadn't noticed the conspiracy, it would have been. The girl ran off instead, so Caesar wakes up and Irina thinks about Caesar, saying to herself how many unfair situations he's faced so far. The only way he's been able to deal with those tough, tricky times is through aggression. I'll change that for him. We're connected, so for Caesar and for me, I need to surround us with trustworthy people. To do that, I have to talk to the Empress. As she's thinking this, Mitcha enters and says she was looking for His Majesty because he wasn't in his room. So that's where he was. But actually, I came to deliver a message to you this afternoon. I invited to have tea with Her Majesty the Empress, and you say to her, Irina, this is perfect timing. There's something I wanted to ask Your Majesty. I want to know if I have the authority to hire new servants. She replies, Miss Hai, have you heard about the commotion earlier today? I handled it pretty well. Then you say to her, Irina, honestly, I was shocked. Do the servants always behave like that here? After that, you ask Irina to make a request to Miss Hai and say, as you know, this is my current situation. I haven't brought a single servant from my family's house. I really don't have anyone I can rely on here in the palace. So, can you help me? At least until I get my own personal maid. Miss Hai gets affected and says to her, of course, Your Majesty, even if my abilities are limited, it would be my pleasure to serve you. Arena thanks her, and they find out that Arena will go to the tea party alone because the Empress can't stand Caesar and doesn't like him. So as soon as Caesar hears the Empress's name, he freaks out and starts acting all weird again. Riene thinks to herself, is the effect of the blood I gave him last night really wearing off? She asks Arena to have the maid leave them alone. After the maid leaves, Caesar suddenly attacks Arena, and Arena thinks to herself, no matter how many times I see that look in his eyes, I just can't get used to them. Caesar counts her fingers and starts sucking her blood. Rena is careful that Caesar counts her in places that aren't visible so the servants won't get suspicious. After a few hours, the servants get Arena ready. Arena puts on gloves because Caesar bit her hand. Once Arena is ready, she tells Caesar, I'll be back soon, Caesar. He says no, so she replies, no way, Your Majesty, you're going to put Her Majesty in a tough spot. Until then, I'll stay here with you. After an hour, we see Arena really tired because she walked a lot, even though she can barely walk because of her lame foot. She thinks to herself, this place is really far. They didn't tell me the location of my palace on purpose. They must have done it knowing I can't walk properly. Finally, Irina arrives and greets the Empress. As Irina gets up, she almost falls because of her foot, but Delphina catches her before she hits the ground. Irina thanks her and then sits down with the Empress. The Empress asks how life is in the imperial palace and if they're comfortable. Irina says there's something she needs to tell Her Majesty. It's about the first prince, the knight's companion, or maybe the servant, she's not sure. There are people hurting Caesar. The Empress says hurting. And Irina replies, yes, his body is covered in wounds. They've used even the chains and his muzzle to restrain him, and the Empress says to her coldly, so what do you want me to do? Irina is shocked, and the Empress tells her, people should only be treated like people when they truly are people. You have to act like a person to be called one. Have you ever seen the first prince act like a person? Can you tell the difference between the first prince and this bird? The bird with the Empress talks back, you know. She continues, in some ways this bird is better than the first prince. At least I can control this one with my own hands, but the first prince, he's a monster you can't control, impossible to rein in once he acts out. Crazy for no reason, naturally the voice is what we need. Don't think otherwise, or how else would you deal with something like this? Hitting the rebellious beast is normal, so Irina gets angry and tells His Majesty it's not a beast. The Emperor laughs at her and says she really has a hidden talent for comedy. That was the best joke he's heard all year. Irina replies, as I said, Your Majesty, the prince is different from the others. She thinks to herself about how he lost his mind, reacted violently to human blood, his left hand turning reptile-like and his eyes resembling the beast. It was definitely a scene worthy of being called a curse, but she has to remember that. Sweet smile in those calm eyes, Irina finished her conversation with the Empress and said, Your Highness, the prince is without a doubt a remarkable person. The Empress replied, Your concern for your husband is admirable. A worthless, illegitimate child like you should cling tightly to a foolish husband, shouldn't she? Irina was shocked and thought to herself, what did she just say? She refuses to acknowledge the Caesar's status or even his humanity, and it seems she looks at me the same way. How can I convince her when she doesn't even see me as human? Then Riene said to the Empress, if His Majesty acts like a human, will you admit it? If Caesar walks on 2 feet, uses tools and talks, will you? That should be enough. The Empress says to her, do you really think you can tame this beast? Well, if you can, I'll admit it. I'll even give you the Azure Flame Dream. The Azure Flame Dream is a necklace said to have been passed down through the women of the empire since its founding. The Empress continues, if you inherit it and wear it openly, it will be like a public declaration of my support for you. The first prince won't just be recognized as a person, but he'll also become the strongest contender for the throne with the backing of the imperial family. That should be more than enough to convince you. You have until the summer feast, 3 months from now. No excuses. A better place than this to present your human too. I hate liars, so if you fool me with empty words as the Empress, I'll have to punish you. On the way to Riene's room, Meisha stops her and says, I heard you tamed that madman, so I thought you'd be a strong warrior, but you're just average. Riene has just come from meeting my mother. She looks really tired because of her foot, but she greets Meisha's and says, It's an honor to meet you. He moves closer, lifts her chin and says, No need to be nervous, Arena. She pulls his hand away from her face and thinks to herself, even his behavior is exactly like the Empress's. And she tells him, I never gave you permission to use my name, and he replies, What nerve, should I call you my brother's wife then? She says, Arena, if you don't have any business with me, I'm leaving. But he grabs her hand, pulls her close and says, You need to be careful. She pushes him away, Arena, let me go. What are you doing? Meanwhile, Matthias is coming up to Arena in a way that's really uncomfortable. He says, just curious, does this idiot even know how to sleep with a woman? Arena is shocked by his bold words and says, What? He smirks. Looks like you're having trouble walking, my brother's wife. Then he tells the maid, bring her a stretcher, and walks off, leaving her in the room. We see Arena really angry because of all this. Meisha said, You filthy bastard, I've never heard such disgusting words in my life, nor have I ever felt such humiliation. Her anger was interrupted by Caesar's call. He was hiding under the bed. She said, You were under the bed this whole time. How did you get in here? Come here, you're covered in dust. She wiped the dust off his face, then laughed loudly to herself, thinking, In this fancy palace I never fit in. Everyone looks at me with coldness wherever I go. Even the Empress and the second prince, they're always looking for any chance to completely crush me. I'm in a spot where I feel like my neck could snap any second. When I look at Caesar like this, I really mean freedom. So Rena tells Caesar, I promised them I'd show them someone worthy. Then she calls Arena over to Mitcha and says, I think Caesar needs a bath. Mitcha gets nervous and Arena notices and asks, Is there a problem? Mitcha replies, Why don't you take Caesar later to protect him? Rena thinks to herself, her hesitation annoys me a bit, but surely nothing serious will happen during a simple bath. I'll wait and see. But after a few minutes, Caesar comes to Arena naked and hugs her. Arena gets really embarrassed and Michai quickly covers him up. From Michai's conversation with Arena, we understand that Caesar is the one bathing her really hard because he doesn't like taking showers. So she thinks to herself, if he can't even manage to shower, then the rest is pretty much expected. She repeats that she's the one who's going to take care of Caesar. He tells her to go ahead but says, Your Highness, maybe you've never helped anyone take a shower before. She thinks to herself, true, I've done laundry and other house chores, but I've never helped someone shower before. But if Caesar wants to keep living, he has to change. Then she tells him, go ahead. Supporting each other is part of being husband and wife, right? So she decides to help him in the bathroom. The servant pours water on Caesar, but Caesar hurts his arm and is about to attack, but Arena stops him. Michai says to Arena, there's no way to bathe His Majesty, you saw how much he hates it. Arena thinks to herself, was that reaction just because he hates bathing? Then Arena says to Mitch, I admit I underestimated this, but we can't give up now. We have to finish the bath. Mitch replies, but it's obvious he doesn't want it. Arena answers, we still need to do it. She calls Caesar and Mitchai asks, Your Majesty, what are you going to do? Arena says, we have to finish the bath. I promised the Empress. Let's make Caesar a walking person. Please understand, Caesar needs this now, so she lets him go and leaves, hoping Arena isn't hurt emotionally. Arena talks to Caesar calmly and asks, Can I ask why you hate taking a shower? He replies, I hate it. She says, showering feels amazing, you know. It relaxes you, refreshes you, and makes you smell good. But Caesar still doesn't agree. She thinks to herself, does he really hate it that much? Then Arena puts her hand in the water and says, Look, Caesar, when you put your hand in warm water, your whole body relaxes. It feels great. But Caesar isn't interested in what Arena says. She asks him, Arena, do you hate? Have the servants protect you and think to yourself, that makes sense. Those who treated him badly were probably the same ones protecting him. Who knows how badly they treated him? So she tells him, if you don't want others to protect you, you'll need to learn how to do it yourself. I'll show you how. Can you try it? Don't worry, this time I'll help you. All right, let's take it slow. She pours a little water on his hand, but he gets upset. She thinks to herself, come to think of it, he didn't react at all to the servant's blood earlier. I thought he'd chase after any blood, but maybe not. She says to him, this time, I'll pour the water from a little higher up. Don't pour the water and say, how's that? It's not so bad, right? But Rena is really shy because of Caesar's good looks, so she covers him and says, Caesar, you can't just throw your clothes off like that. He tells her, I can. She replies, exactly, you have to hold this tight so it doesn't come undone. He listens and holds it tight. She thinks to herself, I still need to show him how to shower because when we were eating together, he didn't eat until I took the first bite. Rena awkwardly takes off part of her clothes and thinks, I really don't want to keep showing my bare legs. And we notice that Rena's legs have a lot of the bruises. We know the reason Irina's leg got hurt was because Safra pushed her down the stairs when she was a kid. Back then, no one cared about Irina or even took her to a doctor. Because they neglected her, she ended up limping, and they used to call her dirty because of her foot. So Irina's worried about Caesar's reaction and thinks to herself, what if Caesar thinks I'm dirty too? But Caesar doesn't care at all, so Irina relaxes and tells herself he doesn't even realize what's bothering me. She sits in the water and tells Caesar, this feels amazing. Then she splashes water in his face, grabs his hand and says, come here. She sits him down beside her in the water and says, see, not too bad, right? You know I like things to be clean. He says to her, surprised, clean. She replies, yeah, that's why I want Caesar's scent to be nice too. Then she pours the soap into the water and says, here, smell this. He says, it smells good. Irina feels a lot of pain because the soap got into a cut on her hand. She's really scared of Caesar looking at her because she thought he wanted to drink her blood. But he surprises her by gently and lovingly kissing the cut on her hand. Irina jokes with him, are you giving me the sickness and the cure? He laughs and says, yeah. Irina washes Caesar's body, but she's too shy to wash the lower part, thinking to herself, I can't wash something that belongs to him, so she says, show me, Caesar. You can take care of the rest yourself now, right? But Caesar gets upset and says no, grabbing her by her clothes. She thinks to herself, I'm happy because he depends on me. But then she tells him, don't do that. I'll give you a reward if you can do it by yourself. He asks, surprised, a reward? She replies, yes, you have to wrap yourself up just like I said earlier with the healing wrap. If you do that, I'll give you something nice. He asks, something nice? She says, yeah, something nice. Then he says, I want you to pat my head. She smiles and says, sure, I'll do whatever you want when you're done, and thinks to herself, he definitely has it. 9. The next morning, Irina tells Michai, yesterday Caesar took a shower by himself. Michai gets upset and asks, did you let him do that alone after you kicked me out? Irina is surprised by Michai's reaction but says, it would be nice if he could bathe himself. Do you have a problem with that? Michai replies, Caesar is different from ordinary people. You have to be very careful with him. Please don't ever do that again. Irina responds, okay, I was wrong. Michai says, I heard you broke a promise. Irina answers, yeah, I'll make sure Caesar goes to the banquet that's happening in 3 months. I'll start training him from today. She then tells Ty's doing fine. Please let me know if you need anything. I'll help if I can. Irina was really surprised by Miss Hai's reaction because sometimes she's on her side and sometimes against her. She's thinking to herself, what's up with Miss Hai? We know Delphina will help us convince people that Caesar has become a normal person. Then they talk about the outfit Caesar will wear at the ceremony and Irina's dress. Suddenly, the emperor's assistant enters. Irina is surprised to see her and asks what brought her here. The assistant says Her Majesty the Empress sent these gifts. Irina is really shocked by the Empress's kindness. It's a complete surprise. To herself, what is the Empress planning? Then Alfar tells her, Your Majesty, the Empress is really impressed by your care and loyalty to your husband. She's asked us to support you, so please let me know if you need anything. I'll honestly help you with whatever you need. Just don't let people think the plan failed because of a lack of support. The plan here refers to the failed agreement Irina had with the Empress, since Caesar is just a normal guy. Then Irina says, I want to replace all the servants because they treat Caesar really badly. So Alfar follows Irina's order and changes all the servants for her. At lunch, the food quality is also good. Miss Hai got better, so she started feeding Caesar herself. Irina said to her, "Show me what you're doing. Don't do everything for him like that. You shouldn't treat him like a child." Miss Hai replied, "Are you asking me to help His Highness?" Irina said, "My lady, didn't you tell me before that you'd help me when I said I'd teach Caesar manners?" Miss Hai said, "But His Highness Caesar is usually sensitive. And the days he eats well like this are rare. There's no meat today because it's the big hunting season, so if he doesn't eat properly, his health will suffer." Irina responded, "Still, there's no need to go that far. It seems it's really strange to him," so Micha ignores her words. She was about to feed Caesar herself, but Irina stops her. Irina shows Caesar how to eat and says, "Like you saw last time, you're supposed to use your nose first when eating." But Caesar throws the fork on the ground. Micha says to Caesar, "This is hard for you, isn't it? I'll help you." But Irina stops her again and asks Delphina to bring another fork. Irina tells Michai, "We'll have to keep doing this until Caesar can do it on his own." She gives Caesar the fork again, but he throws it down a second time. Irina says to him, "Do you think this is a game?" Michai gets really upset and says to Irina, "I told you His Highness would attend the banquet, right?" Irina replies, "No, I don't think it's just your Highness's wish." Irina is shocked by Michai's words, but she tells Michai, "I don't think so." Michai angrily says, "Your Highness, you don't understand how His Highness Caesar has lived until now. Don't you think about the harm he might suffer?" Irina responds, "I get what worries you. Yes, Caesar might get hurt with this plan, but it's something he truly needs. No achievement comes without pain or scars." Michai angrily asks, "So you want to make His Highness a laughingstock, right?" Irina is really surprised by her behavior. "I'm going to cancel the request I made last time, so from now on, don't get involved between me and Caesar." After a few hours, we see Caesar sleeping on Irina's leg. Caesar wakes up and Irina asks him, "Maybe you didn't like that I sent Michi away." He doesn't answer. Irina says, "All right, let's do it now, we don't have time." Then Irina tells us what she chose to do: feed my blood. I kept him calm regularly since it wasn't clear how he'd react to others' blood, and to keep this secret from leaking, this was the safest way. The only problem was figuring out how to hide the wounds every time. But there was one spot where it wouldn't be strange to get hurt regularly, and where I could even come up with an excuse, even if it hurt my leg. One night in the bedroom, Irina woke up and said, "Even this useless body had at least one advantage." Who would have thought, seeing him like that he was the cursed prince who deserved to be hated, a brighter, warmer place because Caesar truly deserves that. And to make sure of it, I'll see this through no matter what happens on the other side. Then we see Michai saying, "Caesar's kid, this child is mine. No one can come between us, not even that arrogant girl." Next, we go to the dining room where she angrily asks her mother, "Is it true that Irina is still alive?" Her mother replies, "Don't raise your voice, that's rude." She responds, "Why didn't you tell me? I already picked out the dress, the hat, and the gloves for the funeral." Her mother tells her, "Don't go around saying things like that, things like this. What if those nasty rumors start spreading? It's unexpected. She's always been stubborn in a weird way. Even when she got stung or hit, she never made a sound or cried. When we didn't feed her and let her go hungry, she survived by eating roots and dirt mixed with old bread in the garden. We gave her impossible homework and punished her through the teacher, but she stayed up all night memorizing the whole book. If only she had cried or begged, maybe we'd have felt some sympathy. Then the mother would lose her temper and tell her, 'Don't worry,' like she'd just stand by and let her get ahead. 'Start getting ready. Head to the imperial palace, I'll have you stay beside the empress.' On the other side, we see Irina, who had a strange dream. She dreamt of a girl who was really scared and bleeding from her mouth. Irina wakes up startled and Caesar wipes her tears away. Irina thinks to herself, "I still feel like I can't breathe. Could this energy be just a dream?" Caesar pats her head and says, "It's okay." Irina is touched and thinks, "Is he copying how I comfort people?" Then Caesar reassures Irina and thanks her, saying, "Clean." Irina is confused and asks, "What do you mean?" Suddenly, he hugs her and Irina feels shy. She smells his body and notices it smells like soap, so Caesar says to her, "Ring, you'll like this." She replies, yeah, I will. Wait, did you shower alone, Caesar? He says, yeah, did I do well? She gets really happy and says, yes, you did great. He takes her hand and says, then give me that. So she gives him the ring and says it's a trendy greeting in the capital these days. She thinks to herself, what did I do? Caesar was so nice, I just went along with it without thinking. Caesar kisses her too, and she says, show me, it was just a greeting, all right. Caesar says lovingly, Rin, I'm into you. She replies, Rin, I'm into you too, and thinks to herself, yeah, I am. Sometimes being a fan can be scary and sometimes it hurts, but how can anyone not love such genuine and pure affection? The next morning, we see Irina telling Delphina, I want to ask you something before we go to the imperial palace. The Marquis had other fiancés. What kind of people were they? Delphina replies, I haven't met them all personally, but I've heard about how they behaved while they were here. Each of the 4 previous fiancés stayed at the imperial palace to receive wedding training before the ceremony. Every time, there were constant dramas, especially the 4th fiancé, the Marquis's daughter, who caused a huge scene. The party was going on and Lady Oronzo was really angry, causing a big scene, saying she couldn't get married like this. Irina thought to herself, the Marquis's daughter, Pierre, that's a well-known and respected family. Why does this name sound so familiar? That's the name I heard in my dream last night. Delphinia noticed Ren's nervousness and fear, so she stepped up and asked, Your Highness, are you okay? Ren thought to herself, wasn't it just a simple dream? Then she replied to Delphinia, I'm fine. Delphinia said, you don't look fine. Should I light some incense to calm you down? Ren talked to herself. Think about it, something did happen. Just like before when Delphinia was falsely accused, and because of that dream she had the night before, she managed to find out who the real culprit was. Then Rin asks Delphinia, do you know how the prince's 4th wife died? Delphinia replies, yeah, a woman who almost became a princess was killed by the cursed prince's hand. That's how the rumors spread, and I believe that was the truth until now. Rin then asks, did Caesar really kill that lady? And what do you think about Caesar's aggressive behavior? Delphinia answers, it's true Caesar showed aggression towards others, Rin, but it always seemed more like a defensive reaction rather than an intent to harm. Rin asks Delphinia again and says, did Caesar really kill her? Delphina lowers her eyes to the ground and says, Your Highness, forgive me, but someone like me wouldn't know about these things. Then Rin says, you're right, that was an inappropriate question. Please pretend you didn't hear it. After that, she asks about Mrs. Michai, and Delphina replies, I've heard she hasn't left her room since this morning. Rin thinks to herself, still shaken, huh? Hado looks graceful on the outside, but there's something strange about her. Then Rin asks Delphina, what kind of person is Michai? Delphina answers, she cares deeply about Prince Caesar, although her love might be a bit exaggerated. So Rin thinks to herself, this isn't just love, it's over-the-top love. Then a few hours later, she thanks Delphinia and goes to look for Caesar because they're supposed to start new lessons today. She looks for him in the garden and calls out, and he answers, sitting on top of the palace. He's about to give Rin a heart attack. Rin gets really scared and says loudly, Caesar, that's dangerous. Caesar sticks his tongue out, so Rin closes her eyes and says very scared, he fell. And starts crying hard because she thought that if he fell, he must be dead. But Caesar's like a monkey and nothing happened to him. He goes to Rin and tells her off, and Rin just can't handle the stress. He fell to the ground and Rin started crying hard, yelling at him. You idiot, why would you do something like that? What if you got hurt? He told her, I'm fine. She said, how can you say you're fine after jumping from such a high place? He reassured her, really, I'm okay. She wiped her tears and said, you idiot, don't ever do that again, okay? He replied, okay. Rin was surprised and said, wait, he jumped from that height and he's really okay. What is going on here? And more importantly, what were the guards doing while the prince was climbing up there? Isn't it their job to protect him at all times? Then the guards appeared, and when they saw Rin, they greeted her. She said, Rien, really upset with the guard captain, says, did you know Caesar fell from there? The captain laughs mockingly and replies, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's with all this fuss about the monitor lizard? Isn't it enough that nothing happened to it? It seems like everything is fine now. Rien gets really angry and thinks to herself, Someone just fell off the top of the tower and they say nothing happened. She answers him, isn't this exactly what the guards are supposed to handle? I'm going to report this incident. The guards laugh at her words. Rien is shocked by the ridiculousness of what's happening in front of her. The captain asks, who exactly do you think you're going to report this to? Rien replies, of course, to Her Majesty the Empress. The prince says to her, I have to tell Her Majesty myself. Can our hot-headed lady do something like that? She replies, Ren, watch your words. How dare you mock the prince? Aren't you afraid you'll be accused of tarnishing the royal family's reputation? He says, Your Highness, you really don't understand how the world works. Let me tell you something. Even if you disappeared right now, honestly, no one would care. You'd just be another dead princess. She takes a deep breath despite herself. I hate to admit it, but he's not wrong. If the rumors are true, it's weird that I'm still alive right now. Even if I suddenly die, no one would find it strange. Just like that cursed prince was always replaced by another new prince without a fuss. My death in a noble place will make people say she was lucky, dying as a noble woman. Then the leader turns to Rin and says, Are you really trying to disappear without a trace like a rat, or are you doing this just to get attention? But before Rin can get close, Caesar grabs him by the neck, lifts him up, and starts choking him hard, almost killing him. Then Rin. At this rate, someone might actually die, so the guards try with all their might to keep Caesar away from the leader, but they just can't hold him back because he's way too strong. Then Rin calls out to Caesar and asks him to leave the leader alone, but Caesar looks at her with his red eyes, which worries Rin. She thinks, this is a side of Caesar I don't know, the wild, untamed nature he's always kept hidden. Can I stop him? I thought I understood him well, but can I really say this is the Caesar I know? Maybe I was wrong to believe I truly understood him. Rin pleads, don't do this, Caesar, you can't. And she thinks to herself, I don't want this if I see you hurting someone. If you do that, you'll really become the monster everyone says you are. So Caesar leaves for Ren's sake. After he leaves, the leader says, You're such a monster, seriously. No one else wants to be raised like you. Ren holds onto Caesar to stop him from attacking the leader again, and the leader just says, Go and hurry. Then you hug Caesar, cry in his arms, and say, They're gone now, it's okay, everything's fine. From Caesar's eye color, Ren knows he's calm and back to normal. Caesar thanks Ren, surprised, saying, Thank you. She replies, First and foremost, thank you for listening to me and stepping in for me, but you can't hurt people. She thinks to herself, if Caesar hadn't acted, something worse could have happened. Caesar asks her why, and she says, Because I don't want to see you hurt people. Can you do that for me? He tells her, But you're the one who's hurt. She replies, So what? If Rin is a problem, then so be it. He snaps, They're really hurting you, Rin. She's surprised and thinks, Is Caesar mad at me? Because my feelings got hurt. Has anyone in my life ever gotten mad at me? Caesar says, They're bad people. She responds, Still, you can't do that, it could get you into big trouble. Then she thinks to herself, I really can't do that. How can I possibly scold this amazing dog? Could there really be another prince as beloved as him? After a few days, Rin tells us that after that incident, the captain of the guards disappeared from duty without any mention or punishment. That must mean the emperor covered it up, just like they said. But thanks to this question, do you really think our hot-headed prince is capable of that? I know what I have to do next. Then we see Rin taking on the role of teacher, starting to teach Caesar. She says, Come on, Caesar, let's study. Caesar is surprised and asks, Study? Rin replies, If Caesar is going to attend the banquet, at least he needs to be able to speak more normally than he does now. Caesar will have to meet a lot of people and will be in situations where he has to talk to them. The way Caesar communicates right now, with just a few words, isn't good. It basically means Caesar talks like a kid who's way behind. His level is really low. Even if he's not fluent, if he learns to read and write, he'll be able to speak more naturally. So Rin starts with Caesar from scratch, like he's a kid just learning. She shows him flashcards shaped like animals, but he's not interested. She suggests they try to spell his name, but he still doesn't care. Then as soon as she says, Okay, now spell Rin's name, he suddenly pays attention and starts spelling it. Rin is surprised and says, That's right, how did you know? You're amazing, Caesar. Is there anything else you know how to do? He says, I know everything. and then tells her the names of the shapes on each card. She's impressed by how smart he is and thinks to herself, I seriously underestimated Caesar's intelligence. The next step is Caesar learning to write. He writes on the board and he actually manages to write Caesar on it. Rand feels really proud of him and thinks, Caesar, you're doing great. Even though he struggled at first, now he can write the letters in 3 strokes. Then Rand says to Caesar, Caesar, do you want to try writing on paper this time? She takes his hand and teaches him how to write on paper. After he finishes, Caesar the writer was surprised. Reno thought to herself, are you trying to control this? This isn't just a basic skill. I know writing from intensive courses, but Caesar's handwriting is full of elegance. Why didn't I notice this before? This is a sign of education. Caesar was born as the first prince of the empire, the most likely heir to the throne. He probably received a formal imperial education, including royal studies from a young age. Even though his intelligence is now clouded by a curse, the effects of the learning he got since childhood still remain inside him. One of Caesar's good qualities was hidden behind this curse's veil, and it shows. Rin hugs him tightly, feeling really happy she did. She says, Rin, what exactly is this curse? He looks puzzled and says, a curse, she explains. You know, the curse that was put on Caesar is just an old family legend passed down through the royal family. The story goes that a crazy dragon wanted to destroy the world, but the first emperor defeated it. The evil dragon got so upset that it cursed the emperor's bloodline. That curse supposedly passed down through generations of the royal family, or at least, that's what the old story says. Then, the first prince, Caesar, started showing signs of the curse. Everyone thought it was just a made-up myth. Nothing real. It's supposed that this dragon, the villain, died hundreds of years ago, so how come this curse is still around? But one thing's clear. Caesar isn't someone who should be treated like that. After that, Ren takes Caesar and tells him a story. Once upon a time, by a certain pond, there lived a very beautiful couple. From their love, they laid several eggs, one of which was unusually big and ugly, which worried the couple. But they thought it was just a slightly bigger egg, so they kept it warm and safe. So what was the problem? The duck that hatched from the big egg was different from her siblings. She had feathers. The ugly and awful black duck abandoned her because she looked so hideous, so the ugly duck fell into despair and lost hope. Later they slept and Rin had another strange dream about a girl saying, who in the world could love something this ugly? Who in their right mind would marry a monster like this? I'll die, and they'll all regret it once I'm gone. My dad forced this on me and my mom couldn't stop it. They can all come and cry at my funeral, but once I'm dead, everything's over. What's the point of their regret then? I have to find a way to escape this marriage. Just as she was about to give up on dying, someone pushed her into the lake and told her, stop struggling. Death wakes me up, sometimes a loud noise, and I wake up and say, one more time, just one more. How many times did this happen? Every day this week I had a nightmare. At first the scenes were new to me, but now I'm starting to understand the picture. Sometimes it felt like a pillow pressing on my face. Other times it was a fierce shove, and sometimes it took a violent form. Other times it was poisoned food. The common theme in all these dreams is that the ones dying were people who were supposed to marry Caesar, and I always wake up right after someone kills me. They were all crazy. Are these nightmares just my personal anxiety, or what? I'm really going crazy? Caesar kissed her on the cheek and asked if she was okay. She said, yeah, I'm fine, thanks for waking me up again. Rin tells us that since that day, whenever she has a nightmare, Caesar always comes and wakes her up. It seems like he thinks that after waking her, he should always give her a kiss on the cheek. Rin asks him, how do you always know? You always come to my room and wake me up whenever I have a nightmare. He just says, I just know. Rin thinks to herself, I haven't been able to sleep deeply these days. I'm really tired. If I just think of these as simple dreams, what if these dreams are actually telling me the truth, just like what happened before? When they revealed the thief who stole the jewels, maybe they were all killed by someone, and that someone is inside the imperial palace. No one deserves to have their life end so cruelly. Who in the world would do something like that? It's not like I have any proof. If there was a witness who saw something nearby, suddenly they stand up and say, "There's a witness right here in front of me." Then she says to Caesar, "Caesar, do you remember the previous candidates for the prince's wife? The women who came before me and died?" He asks her, "Women? They died?" Rin gets confused and wonders if he really understands what she's saying or if he's just repeating the ends of her sentences. Then Rin says to him, "That's right if my theory is correct. There's a bad guy who killed those women," and she's thinking to herself, "If my dreams are real, then Caesar, who was right there with them, is the most reliable witness." So Caesar tells her bad. She says, "Yeah, that was really bad. So Caesar, if you remember anything, tell me." He says, "Splash, splash in the water." Then Rin asks if Caesar knows anything about the candidate who fell into the lake. She asks him what happened next, but he just keeps repeating the word splash. Then he says, "She followed the ducklings and they splash in the water. The duck mom quacks, quack, quack." He's literally telling her the story of the ugly duckling. Rin thinks to herself, "I knew it. I've been reading him a lot of books lately, but I never imagined there'd be a side effect like this." So he finishes the story and says to her, "The ugly duckling stared at her reflection in the river and felt hopeless. She asked, 'What sin did I commit to be called so ugly?' Then she says to him, 'Rain, Caesar, do you really like this story?' He looks at her like maybe she could read it to him again. She says, 'Rain, don't tell me you want me to read it now.' He replies excitedly, 'Yeah, read it.' So Rain turns on the light and smiles, saying, 'How can I say no?' Then she tells him the story. Once upon a time in a certain pond lived a very beautiful duck couple who laid several eggs were the fruit of their love. So Caesar stops her and asks, 'Rin, what is love?' Rin thinks to herself, 'What is love? How is he asking me such a deep philosophical question?' Then she starts philosophizing and says, 'Love means really, really liking someone a lot. That's not Rin, that's me when I get a question on the exam I don't know and just start rambling.' Caesar excitedly says, 'I'm really into you, Rin.' She laughs and replies, 'I'm into you too, Caesar.' He grabs a lock of her hair and with eyes full of love says, 'Rin, I love you.' She's obviously surprised, but then Caesar adds, 'Are you sure you're really not okay? Honestly, you look like you're messing with us and pretending to be a clueless servant, you know.' Caesar knows everything about her hair and says to her, 'And you, Rin?' Rin's body stiffens and blushes, so she tries to calm herself down and says, 'Calm down, Caesar.' He's teasing her in a pure and innocent way. She's sure he's being innocent, so she replies, 'Rin, I'm gonna die from embarrassment, and so will I.' Then Rin continues reading the story and says, 'They laid brown eggs because of their love.' Caesar asks, 'When will you hatch them? Hurry up and hatch them, Rin.' Rin doesn't know how to answer and thinks, should I tell him I can't lay eggs or should I use what I learned in sex ed? She tries to explain, but he interrupts and says, 'Rin, how many will you hatch? How are you gonna do it?' Rin stammers and says, 'Bah, hold hands like this and fall asleep, then the egg will appear.' She grabs his hand and says, 'Like this, you sleep while holding my hand.' Then they fall asleep. Rin thinks to herself, this is a small win, right? It would be cruel to break Caesar's innocence from the start. It's better to make sure to skip the parts about carrying the burden of love. The next morning at the store, Asfura isn't happy at all and tells the owner, 'I came here because I heard you're a pioneer in the past. Is this all you've got?' He replies, 'I'll bring more, ma'am.' Then he says to his mother, 'Oh my God, what a beautiful daughter you have. I just wish you wouldn't bring her here again, lady. It's like having an eldest daughter as beautiful as hers wasn't enough. Your youngest daughter has also become the crown princess, right? But she's really upset because someone mentioned Rin's name.' The owner notices she's bothered and changes the subject, flattering her and her daughter, of course. When it comes to virtue and fame, they say no one honors your eldest daughter. I heard she's been the center of attention since she first appeared in society last year, as expected from the heir of the Flores Al-Marmok family. She tells him, yes, this time she'll need a dress befitting her higher status. After all, my daughter has been chosen to be the companion of Her Majesty the Empress and will be entering court soon, the imperial palace. We go to Caesar, who asks Ren, when are you going to have the baby? Delphinia, affected by their relationship, tells them, you two make such a cute couple. She asks for help preparing lunch so they can spend some time together. Ren tries to explain the misunderstanding, but Delphinia disappears in seconds. Ren says to Caesar, "God expose you, Caesar, just like you exposed us." She tells him, "Caesar, we agreed to talk about this only when we're alone." He asks why, and she replies, "Because things like this are supposed to stay private from others." Then she adds, "If you keep asking like this, it might never happen. Honestly, I can't keep lying about this forever, but ever since that day, Caesar hasn't stopped talking about the fruit of our love. I thought if I ignored it, he'd lose interest, but I didn't expect him to be so stubborn about it. If someone in the palace hears about this and misunderstands, things could blow up and turn into a big deal. I'll have to do something." So Kai says to her, "Is it okay if I hold your hand a bit more?" He thinks if he holds her hand, the baby will come faster. She shyly replies, "Okay, but not now." He laughs and says, "All right, I get it. We'll do it secretly when no one's around, right?" She says, "Ren really wants to do something." And we go to the maids who are talking about Ren's relationship with Caesar. One of the maids says, "When Mrs. Wren came for the first time, I thought they'd carry her dead body outside, but the opposite happened. They're always stuck together, whispering and laughing all day. A few days ago, someone saw them on the same bed through the cracked door." Then another maid responds, "How could she be with such a beast of a man?" The first maid says, "Who knows, maybe he's good at night." Of course, no one listened to them. Miss Al-Harboka says, "She's going to explode with anger or jealousy, God knows. And what does this crazy woman want from us?" The next morning, that dirty woman goes to Caesar's room and says, "Come here, I have a gift for you." He gets really happy and asks, "A gift? Is it something good?" She replies, "Yeah, it's good," and then hands him an egg. She says, "I'm really shy. I gave birth, guys." "I can't stop laughing." He says, "Is this the fruit of our love?" She says, "Yes, the fruit of our love." He gets super happy and asks, "When did you give birth?" She says, "This morning." But actually, she asked Delphinia to bring her a bird's egg. Caesar then says to Rin, "So you're okay, right? The delivery must have been tough." She tells him, "No, don't worry, I'm fine," and then tells us Delphinia was the one who had the hard time finding the egg. Caesar, all excited, says to her, "Caesar, it's gonna hatch into a little duck, right?" She replies, "Yeah." But in her mind, she's thinking, "I told Delphinia to bring any egg, but no matter how you look at it, this is a chicken egg. It can't hatch into a duck. If it goes bad later, I'll throw it away secretly. You'll die, you liar, before my dad even sees it." She sits on the couch, waving her hands for him to come sit next to her and says, "Now that I've seen it, let's stop and read a book." He tells her, "No, I want to hold Rin right now." "What am I gonna do with that?" She says, "If you hold him like that, he'll crack." So Caesar does. Egg lived and told her, "I'll be careful, I'll keep warm in a nest that looks like it'll make a caring dad." Then she says, "Rin, why do I feel like things are getting out of control?" He's like, "Are you feeling uncertain?" At night in Rin's room, we see Caesar sitting on the floor in front of her holding the egg. Rin asks, "Are you really going to sleep here?" He says, "Yeah, I need to stay warm." She thinks to herself, "Maybe I made a mistake." Then she tells him, "But if you get tired, you should get into bed, okay?" Caesar talks to the egg and says, "We have to keep you safe and warm because you're the fruit of our love." The next morning, Rin wakes up and finds Caesar still awake, hasn't slept at all. Yesterday, she tells him, "Don't tell me you haven't slept since last night." So he shows her the egg, and the egg is moving. Rena gets really shocked. Then a really bright light shines from the egg, it hatches, and out comes the cutest little chick on the whole planet. Rena is totally stunned because she never expected the egg to actually hatch. Caesar is super happy and tells her it's the fruit of their love. She pretends to be happy about their love child, but inside, she's dying from the shock. Caesar lights a fire to keep the chick warm, but Caesar looks at the chick like he wants to eat it or something. They play with the chick, and she seriously asks, "What are we supposed to do with a tiny chick?" After all the teaching and books she's read. "They never taught me how to raise a newborn kitten." Maybe Caesar knows, so Ran asks him if he knows how to raise the chick. He replies that they'll put it in the water. Then Delphinia accidentally walks into the room, and as soon as she sees the chick, she asks, "What is this?" Delphinia connects the dots and realizes that this chick is the egg Ran brought yesterday. Ran hushes her so she doesn't blow their cover in front of Caesar. Caesar answers Delphinia's question, saying, This is the fruit of our love. Ran and Delphinia step aside to talk, and Delphinia asks Ran, how can there be a chick inside the egg? I'm sure I picked a fresh one, a special one without a chick. Food, Rin asks her, do chicks usually hatch that fast? Delphinia replies, not at all. They need to be incubated for at least 20 days. They can't hatch in just one day. Rin says, Delphinia, it seems like you know me pretty well. Delphinia responds, that's because I used to raise chickens at home when I was little. Just then, the chick starts flying and Rin is really surprised. She asks Delphinia, can chicks actually fly like that? Delphinia says, honestly, I'm not even sure about that. Then we move on to the servant who went to the Empress and greeted her. The Empress says, so, you're higher in rank then? The Crown Prince says to her, yes, I will do my best to please your majesty. She replies, now that I've seen you, you're completely different from your sister, kind and very sweet. The maid asks, could it be that my ignorant sister insulted your majesty? The Empress tells her, that little girl challenged me to a bet. She said she'd make that imperial prince a good man, and in return, I had to acknowledge her status. The maid applauds the Empress and says, how could that rude girl dare to act so disrespectfully toward your majesty? Please forgive my sister's rudeness. The Empress responds, you're definitely wiser than your sister. You're totally fooled by her, she's way too much. She's annoying, but even though she provoked me, I had to keep the dignity befitting an empress, so I had no choice. Then she says to Safra, do you have a good plan? And we go to Ren, who says, it seems Caesar is way more stable now. He rarely acts violently anymore, and lately he's even been able to form really long sentences. If we keep this up, maybe we can show off Caesar at the reception. Then they complain, are they eating chicks or what? Caesar named the chick Abracas, and Ren noticed that the chick is super smart, like a kid who understands what they're saying. So Delphinia goes to Ren and says to her, you have. Hey guys, guess who the guest is, and drop your guesses in the comments. If you want us to release part 5 quickly, smash that like button. Don't forget to share, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. Love you all, my amazing brothers and sisters.